Why does being nice lead to rejection in romantic relationships? In this video, I'm going to break down 11 reasons why this occurs. And more importantly, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a solution, a maneuver that you can make internally in the way that you show up in relationships that will allow you to be much more genuine, be kind in the process, and still be able to honor yourself and ultimately build a foundation that allows love to flourish and these relationships to last. Now, before I dive into that, my name's Clayton Olson, and on this channel, I release videos on a semi-regular basis on personal transformation, relationship communication, vision, business. And if any of that sounds fascinating or you get something valuable from this video, please subscribe and become part of the community. Now, the distinction that I want to make before I dive into these 11 is, number one, that I am making a distinction between being nice and being kind. I don't believe that these two things are the same, okay? And ultimately, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about being nice is I'm talking about a subtle form of self-rejection that is occurring with somebody in relationship. It's subtle, it's invisible because it's internal, but it's ultimately what causes people to reject you. So as I dive into these 11 distinctions, notice the ways in which these are showing up as a way in which, if you're too nice, you're rejecting yourself first. And here's the dynamic. We reject ourselves first in some way. We reject the way that we're feeling. We reject our truth in relationship. And then our partner or whomever it is that we have an interest in follows suit and rejects us afterwards. As we dive into this, I'm not going to talk about necessarily the behaviors of what nice is. I'm going to talk about the motivation behind the behaviors, because that is what makes all the difference. You can have someone who is showing up as a kind, generous human being in relationship and not get rejected, doing almost what it looks like is the same actions as someone who is being nice in the relationship, doing those same actions. And for whatever reason, they get rejected. What's the difference between these two? Well, one of them is coming from fear, and one of them is coming from trust, surrender, love, confidence. And so let's talk about all the ways in which being nice leads to rejection. Let's dive into the first one. So being nice is often rooted in, and it's a cover for a fear. And what kind of fear is it a cover for? It is a fear of being rejected. It is the belief that I need to be nice and I need to be agreeable and accommodating in order to not get rejected. And so what happens is we reject an internal part of ourselves. We reject our authenticity. We reject how we're feeling. We reject what we want in the relationship, and then that is what ultimately leads to the partner rejecting us. The second thing is being nice is often a substitute for authenticity. Being nice is a way in which we stop other people from coming into contact with who we really are. It's a defense mechanism to vulnerability. Being nice is not vulnerable. Being nice is a way in which we're putting on a facade. We're trying to anticipate what someone else wants to see or feel, and we are insulating them from anything that might feel like a negative emotion to us. Being nice is also performative. So there's a way in which if I'm being too nice, I am performing some type of role, I'm putting on some type of mask, because I'm trying to impression manage my own self in your eyes so that I can be who I think you want rather than be truly true to myself. Now, as I go through these, I just want to pause for a moment and say that if you can relate to any of this, it's quite common. This is something that is typically born from childhood trauma. It's born from different beliefs that we created when we were young that had us protect ourselves. It had us make sense of a chaotic world. Perhaps there was a way in which our parents gave us attention and presence and love that was conditional. And if we were too direct with our needs, if we wanted too much, if we allowed our true emotions to come out, we would be risking abandonment in some ways. And so our younger self comes up with the best possible solution, which is to people please, to be nice, to make sure that we can ensure a constant flow of love and attention so that we're not abandoned and annihilated out there in the world. That's how our child mind thinks. And so as I go through these, I really want to exercise compassion and invite you to be compassionate with yourself if you can relate to any of these things, because being nice, being too nice, said another way, is a survival mechanism for something that you dealt with as a kid. And it's not to be hated, it's not to be rejected, it's something to be understood with curiosity and accepted so that we can begin to transcend it into a more integrated way of being. So, being nice is often a rejection or a withhold of what we really want. It's saying no to our desires in the relationship and suppressing the way we're feeling and maybe hiding our truth because we are not wanting to rock the boat. We believe if we really were to show up with how we really feel, it might be too much for the other person. They might leave us, they might walk away. And that fear is what can keep us locked up in this place of being too nice. I want to underline that for a moment because that's super important, is that the difference between being kind and being nice is that being nice is a trap that one is in, where being kind is a free choice. Being kind is what we get access to when we are no longer stuck with being nice as the only option. But when we actually can choose generosity, not from a place of fear, but from a place of generative love, where we are wanting to show up that way rather than feeling like we should show up that way. And that leads me to the next point, is that being nice is often motivated by what we think we should do. It's motivated by the external, this external society. It's motivated by some belief or authority that's outside of us, dictating how we should be in relationship. And whenever we are operating from a place of feeling like this is something we should be doing, we are outsourcing our authority, and we're creating a disempowerment, a gap within ourselves where we're not the ones driving the car at this point. We're allowing some type of arbitrary authority figure outside of us to dictate how we should show up, which ultimately creates resentment when we are operating in relationship in a place of, oh, I should do this, I should do that, because we're not bringing our heart with us into these actions that we're taking. And ultimately that leads to resentment, burnout, and exhaustion in the relationship. Being nice is not self-honoring. In fact, and I said this earlier, we're rejecting an aspect of ourselves by being nice. And then as we are doing that, we bring that into the relationship, and what people come in contact with is someone rejecting themselves. And so they just simply mirror back what we are already doing internally. They mirror back, the world mirrors back a game that we're already playing with ourselves. People aren't rejecting the nice actions. They are rejecting the motivation behind the actions. They're rejecting the way of being that nice is occupying. Therefore, it makes it very difficult to respect. If someone's not honoring themselves, if someone's not respecting their feelings, if they're not respecting what they want, if they're not respecting their truth, then that's an internal way of being that then gets mirrored back to us by other people. It's hard for them to respect that, and that leads to rejection or a compromise in the relationship. Being nice often evokes suspicion about any type of ulterior motives. And why is this? Well, oftentimes being nice is actually creating a way of covert contracts where we are giving something to get something in return. We're not giving from a clean place. We're giving from a place of trying to impress and manage, trying to manipulate the situation, trying to stop the other person from feeling something, trying to stop ourselves from feeling something because there's something that we're wanting. And ultimately, it's this kind of circuitous nature that's not direct and clear that is confusing, and ultimately is going to have people put a wall up and want to disconnect from it because they can't read it. They don't really know the intentions behind it. There's something about it that is fearful and can resonate in the other person as fear that they want to step away from. The impact that this has on relationship is being nice actually shuts down open and honest communication in the relationship, because if I am honoring harmony over truth consistently as someone who is being too nice in the relationship, I don't create a territory for honest, truthful communication to live and to breathe, because I'm either creating the relationship as fragile or I'm creating myself as fragile. And so this can lead to ghosting. This can lead to resentment. This can lead to the relationship or the person that's being too nice almost being like a ticking time bomb in the relationship, because there's all this stuff that's being suppressed until finally it explodes and comes out in a inappropriate context. And number 11, being nice is the antithesis of creating tension. And creating tension in the relationship, creating tension on dates is actually how attraction is generated. If we can't be with tension, if the nice guy or woman is continually breaking tension because she is trying to ease the situation and make things agreeable, accommodating, easy, we don't actually allow there to be a territory for attraction and polarity to exist, because we're constantly neutralizing it with a sense of fear, with a sense of shape-shifting and possibly being a chameleon. So what is the solution? If you can relate to any of this, how do you begin to navigate out of this way of being? Well, I said this in the beginning, but I want to just underscore something else here that I think is important, is that the opposite of being nice is not being mean, it's not being aggressive, it's not being rude. The opposite of being nice is being kind. Because I would argue that being rude or being aggressive or being mean is just it's almost like the same coin of being nice. Both are still coming from fear. They're just different reactions to having fear live in our system while we're in a relationship. We're either shrinking or we're getting big. And so when we can navigate out of this polarity of fear and we can move into a place of love, openness, expression, confidence, trust, surrender, we actually get access to kindness. Now, being nice is different than being kind. Being kind is something that comes from your heart. Being kind is something that expands. It feels like an expansion, where being nice actually feels like a contraction, where the more nice you are, the smaller and smaller it feels like you become. Maybe feeling like you've been compromising yourself, you become a doormat. Being kind is exposing. Being nice is hiding. Being kind comes from love. Being kind is also being kind to oneself, which means honoring your boundaries, honoring what it is that you want in the relationship, honoring what it is that you see that needs to be brought to the table in service of the relationship. Being kind also can't be taken advantage of, because being kind is giving from a place where there's no strings attached. I'm simply being who I am from a place of generosity. I'm choosing it, and I'm giving, and the act of giving is the reward itself. Granted, I'm giving within a means that allows me to keep my balance. I'm not over-giving. I'm giving from a place that allows me to operate from a place of self-respect and like who I'm being. And that in and of itself becomes a closed system. So being kind is an expression of somebody who is able to be in their heart, able to choose to give rather than they're giving out of fear. Being kind can say no. Being nice can't. Being kind is motivated by a genuine desire to be that way, where being nice is often motivated by this idea that we should be that way. There's something that I want to talk about here, which is like, how do we begin to move into kindness? And there's a journey here. There's a transition point. And sometimes we see this in literature. There's a book called Why Men Love Bitches, and there's also another one called No More Mr. Nice Guy for men. And I highly recommend you read both of them, because they're powerful books that talk about this concept of being a doormat, being too nice. If we can allow ourselves to move into this polarity where we actually allow other people to see us as selfish without us collapsing, without us being afraid of that, when we can get comfortable possibly being the bad guy in a situation, which means maybe breaking up with somebody and hurting them, maybe saying no to somebody who's asking for too much and we know it's going to hurt them, but drawing boundaries and actually allowing that person full freedom to have whatever perception of us that they want, because our perception of us is none of their business. I heard that one as a quote before. I think it's a phenomenal one to live by, that what someone thinks of me is none of my business. When we can give someone the freedom to actually see us however they want to see us, and we're not trying to be a nice person, we're not trying to be seen as a good person anymore, we actually have the freedom then to say no, and we have the freedom to make choices that are in alignment with what we want rather than what we think we should be doing, which is actually how we start to move into the realm of having access to being kind rather than reactively being nice in our relationships. So, said another way, the nice guy or the nice girl has to be willing to go to the exact place that they don't want to go psychologically, which is to be seen possibly as selfish, to be seen possibly as a bad, uncaring person. But when you can go into that territory and you can see that that is actually part of your growth, is to allow other people to be able to see you that way. And it doesn't mean that you're purposely trying to be mean, but you're letting go of trying to control other people's perceptions of you. That is where you break this spell. That is where you begin to find your freedom. And then from that place of having your capacity to fully say no to people, you then gain access to truly being able to say yes to people. Again, from a place of choice, from a place of love, from a place of freedom, from a place that's connected to your heart. And that is trustworthy. That no longer rings as manipulative. And what you might find is all of the things that you do that are actions of generosity towards people that are coming from nice, you can still choose to do those actions. But when they come from this different energy of love and choice and freedom within you, they land completely differently. There's a different flavor to them, and they have a completely different result in the relationships that you create in the world. My name's Clayton Olson, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. And if you are looking for any type of support, feel free to contact me. There is an coaching application form in the description. You can also email me. I have been working with folks for 10 years now, helping them navigate into more empowered inner stances that allow them to create the lives, the love life, and the businesses that ultimately light them up. So if that's of interest to you, feel free to reach out.